I'm not saying the price I want it to be. Since we've been doing this so much, I sort of been getting a taste for their little craziness. But like, this isn't like what I actually be like. If I was gonna price this for people, like that chronograph should be like $1,800, and that dive watch should be like, I don't know, $1,100, $1,200 maybe. I remember when the Seiko dive watch was like $350, and you were like, wow, that's a lot of watch for the money. Now, like, that doesn't exist anymore, even though the watch still exists.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. First up, let me just confirm with the gentlemen that are on this call. David, have you sold a watch via aBlogtoWatch in the last week?
No, I have not.
Good. Ariel, have you sold a watch via aBlogtoWatch in the last week?
No.
Excellent.
Or ever.
And Ed, or ever. And Ed, welcome to the show again. Have you sold a watch on aBlogtoWatch in the last week?
I have not.
Then I can happily confirm it's 5,932 days since aBlogtoWatch last sold a watch, which is actually never, because we don't sell watches, we report on them. And that is what we're going to do for you good folks that are listening this week. And we're going to be joined by Ed, who apparently is in Japan taking pictures of French signposts for David. It's an unusual story, but it's actually where we're going to begin. Gentlemen, care to explain the slightly in-joke that I've been experiencing on WhatsApp with the pair of you?
I mean, I'll leave it to David.
Yeah, we were in Geneva.
Le Buck passed.
No, it's okay. I mean, we were in Geneva, and I was just freaking out over all these signs that have like le hotel, le restaurant, and it's the same thing without le in front of it. But then it wouldn't be French. But it's just so like up there in all kinds of ways. And apparently, Ed has been finding a lot of similar signs in Japan, of all places. So he's been documenting this for me just to tease me with those. I wanted desperately to go to Japan, but I'm having second thoughts now.
Because of bad signage.
Yeah, I have a separate album on my iPhone of photos that I've sent to David in various locations of just le cafes and
That's actually true.
Le airports and such. So
I think it would only be fair to let the rest of the watch world in on this. So if you do recall, David's Instagram account is, what is it, David?
aBlogtoWatch_David it is.
Yeah.
I'm happy
You
to
know it very well.
I'm happy to send these photos to anyone who wants as well.
Well, I think if you happen to be listening to the show and you're near any signage that has a "le" in it, you should be immediately posting it on Instagram and copying David into it. So
We'll make a new
David
social media
inbox.
account. We'll just call it Le Account.
I want
Or
to
just
know, is
_David.
Or le blog to watch.
Le blog to watch. That's great.
Oh, what have we done?
well, I want to know if the band, are you familiar with the band The?
Yes.
Yeah, so how does that work then? Is that like le? I don't know. If the band The are playing in concert are being presented on stage by the tour host of the concert, are they introduced as la or something? I don't know.
I don't know, but Ariel better register le blog to watch now because someone's going to do it.
It's coming. Good stuff. Well, let's establish where everybody is in the world because we are spread across the globe. I am in currently very dark Scotland. David, are you? The dawn chorus is going in Hungary, I assume.
Oh yes, absolutely, full blast.
Excellent. Ariel, where are you residing after your sojourning in Dubai?
I'm at home in Los Angeles for a few days, then a quick sojourn to New York, and then maybe home for up to a month.
Excellent. Christmas is coming. Ed.
Yes, I'm in Japan currently, Osaka specifically.
Are you there for reasons you can tell us, or is it top secret?
Oh, completely for vacation time and also to take more signs of random things for David.
Excellent. Well, I mean, it's a free, it's a short life, but it's a free life, so you are entitled to do exactly as you please with it. So taking photos of signs for David is perfectly reasonable. Let's talk about some watches. There's been quite a lot going on, and we'll intersperse it with some Dubai Watch Week follow up. But let's start with David's article from a couple of Mondays ago, Grinding Gears. I miss the time when luxury watches did crazy stunts, sports, and feats. David, what's the craziest thing you've seen a watch brand do?
Well, a watch brand is a different thing, but here I'm talking about what a watch does, and because those are two separate things. Watch brands do all kinds of crazy stuff, but here let's focus on the watch. And I think I really liked when Zenith supplied Felix Baumgartner with one of their watches, and he just jumped from the edge of space in a spacesuit with a watch strapped to the outside of his spacesuit, which is again a very, very cool thing. He even passed the speed of sound, just falling in free fall. So the guy set up like 3 different world records. I think that was very cool. It's just stuff like this. And I list a few other examples in this article. And basically the whole point is that I miss a lot of these things happening more frequently than they are these days.
Is it because they tend to involve good junket trips for journalists?
Yeah, it's been a long while I've been to the edge of space. It's true, but who knows? Maybe I would go there for sure.
David, is there something specific you want to see a watch doing? Because I think that it always depends on the activity, and some might argue, well, like a watch has basically been everywhere, and now there's potentially outer space. But I'm wondering what it is you want to see a watch attempt to do.
But the main thing in this article, and it came up also when I wrote about the 5 cool and 5 bad things about the Daytona, is that I want to see more watches being worn while racing, so in race cars. Because there are so many chronographs, and so many chronographs are inspired by motorsports like this, like that. And as you say, they've been there, they've done that, but they don't do it anymore. And we're just speeding towards this. I
have a question. You know how with passenger cars they have these testing facilities with the crash test dummies? Do they have the same type of thing for race cars? Like, could you be the official watch of the race car crash test dummy?
That could be a thing because they are crash tested. Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of the places where they have a lot of G's, a lot of shock, because you don't really want to crash race cars. Like, well, I mean, the race car drivers don't. So the only way of really like showing that it can put up with crazy abuse is the crash test dummies, right?
Yes, I guess. But one of the examples that I highlight in this article is Felipe Massa having a big shunt in Canada. It was like a 27G crash, and he just gets out of the car, and there's like doctors and other people around him just to check if he's okay, and he's fine. And he removes his gloves, which is very rare that we see, people do that. And he's sitting on the edge of the cockpit of his car, and his onboard camera records the whole thing. And you can see that there's a Richard Mille on his wrist. So he was racing the whole time with a watch on his wrist. And that's rare because most of the watches today are not allowed to be worn in a racing environment because they are made of metal or other flammable materials. It either gets very hot or it catches fires, etc. So even their like socks and like shoes and the all overall and everything, basically it all has to be fireproof and safety and compliant. And so that watch by every chance was allowed to be worn in the cockpit. And basically, long story short, what I would like to see is more brands to claim that they are making motorsport chronographs, put them maybe not in F1, maybe in a rally car, maybe wherever. I don't care, but just create at least one model. Not all of them need to comply with these kinds of regulations and stuff, but at least like one Halo model should be like brands are selling dive watches that are 200 or 300 meter divers, and then they make a 6,000 meter diver. Not because people will just go out and just buy that en masse, but because it's a Halo product. So that's what I think is missing big time from chronographs these days.
We've talked about this before, but there really isn't fire retardant standards either. Like you're talking about fire resistance, and they always talk about all these resistances, but especially with straps. I've never seen anyone specifically mention that outside of maybe 1 or 2 exotic situations of fire resistance. So like, I'm just saying, they talk about, water resistance to places we'll never go. I guess you have a slightly higher chance of having your watch catch on fire than you being, 1,000 meters underwater.
I guess that's actually true. Yes.
Both of those eventualities sound pretty remote, to be fair.
Imagine a case back that says fire resistant. How cool is that?
Especially if it was fire resistant.
David,
Yes.
before Ed and Ariel joined us, we were having a talk about EU standards, and you know fine well that the European Union would prevent anybody putting that on the back of their watch.
Oh, maybe. But then, the Americans can have all the good stuff and the Japanese,
Yeah,
and then we'll just go over there and buy it from them.
and bring it in. Ed, most ridiculous thing you've ever witnessed a watch do? You've been on some trips.
Oh man, I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Feel free to think about it now.
Yeah, put me on the spot. Can't think of anything
Oh,
ridiculous. I mean, I think that's kind of to David's point, like that there isn't anything that's like crazy ridiculous that's done with watches actually on people's wrists. They're more stories that surround the watches, but not the actual thing itself, the event. So yeah.
I mean, you see these case manufacturers for like iPhones and things throwing them out of helicopters and dropping them off of buildings. Do we need some more of that? Some actual risk, throwing some G-Shock. I mean, and you see G-Shock, they do you see the testing they put their watches through, and
Yes.
occasionally they'll do a wee video of it being hurled from somewhere significant
Yeah.
and walking away unscathed.
Well, David mentioned the that Richard Mille that Nadal wears. What's that like the Arm 27? Like that thing is super cool. It's a really cool looking watch, and functionally, it withstands the 10,000 plus Gs or whatever measurement it is that tennis players encounter when they're playing a game. Like I don't know, that'd be fun to just like go out, strap on a bunch of new Richard Milles that have the same kind of technology, and like play tennis with. I don't know, maybe not Nadal, but someone, like that's a practical thing that, could conceivably be done in a press trip setting. But that particular watch stands, I think, like as a really kind of practical modern example of a watch that really can be used in that kind of setting. And it is like serious G forces that are exerted upon it, and it still stands the test and still keeps on working. So that's pretty cool to actually see it in action like that.
Now, is the opposite also true? There are some brands, Omega, that need to shut up about what their watches allegedly did back in the day and move on. Are there brands that need to move along?
It still sells watches, though. That's the sad thing.
It does. It does still sell watches. Yes.
I think Sin is freezing their watches to like minus 40 or 45 degrees or something like that. I remember seeing these pictures of like these iced up, completely frozen Sin watches. So kudos to that.
I was just going to say that I remember one instance where a watch was put through an interesting test. This was when Philippe Anti was still working at Ball Watch, and he was developing their shock resistance system, like spring lock and stuff like that. And at the time, the Kiss drummer Eric Singer was sort of a friend of the brand. He's a watch lover, and he and Philippe Anti was a big Kiss fan. And make a long story short, Eric agreed to wear this Ball watch while he's drumming. And that's a lot of force on there, and I didn't even think you could necessarily do that. I guess it was snug enough. And then if Philippe would test the watch, and he would evaluate it and see sort of how it was doing. So I don't know the full story, but I thought it was interesting that over the course of an entire concert tour, he would both wear the watch, and then Philippe would, like, from time to time when he go to the show, check it out and see what all that drumming did to it. So that was interesting.
There is a small but very niche community of drummers that are also fans of watches, of which I happen to be one of them. And my Panerai survives perfectly fine being played on the drums. Never had any issues with it.
Cool.
I have had issues with one or two other watches.
Oh.
It is the test I like to put them through. Do I feel that this watch feels like it's okay being played on the drums? And I wear my watch on the left wrist, which means it really does get it, because the snare drum is where all the high pressure activity is, especially if you're wearing your watch on your left wrist. So yeah, there is a wee community of watch geeks and drummers that share the odd WhatsApp conversation. But there we go. We actually might have one of the slightly more famous ones on the show soon. So there we go. Let's delve into a bit of Dubai Watch Week. Ed, Ariel, anything further to report from the last when last we recorded?
I mean, we're still both heavily jet lagged, so it was a great show. We had a good time. We saw a lot of watches. I was just recently looking over a list at some of the Seddiqi exclusive watches which were debuted there, and honestly, there's so much personality and style and taste in them. You tend to think of like limited editions for a retailer just having some different color here and there. But the Seddiqis especially, I think out of all the retailer groups, do some of the best limited editions. And I guess you can get them from afar, but these are ones that the retailer works with their author. The brands are authorized to sell to make interesting versions of it, and they're very spirited. They're very artistic. Some of them are fun. The one they did with Reservoir Watches has sort of a cartoon dial done by a local Dubai artist, and there's sort of an Emirati on there, and you just don't really see cartoon renditions like that very often. So you see a culture that's able to be playful and at least from a wristwatch perspective, not take itself too seriously, which is not sort of what you assume because we were think of what were the limited editions for the golf, with the sort of little the cross swords and the seals and the dictator faces and stuff like that. And now it's gotten remarkably universal in its appeal.
Hmm. Ed, was your first Dubai Watch Week. Reflections on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Ariel was saying, I feel pretty jet lagged, so I don't fully recall what all we talked about last week, and I think it was literally a week ago, and it feels like so much longer than that. I mean, I agree with Ariel. The Seddiqi editions are really cool. I think that Doxa 300 beta we talked about, that still stands out as one of the cooler looking pieces overall. That it seemed to be that blue was the color of the week for all those, or a good majority of those watches. So that one stands out. But to that reservoir point, I kind of like that. I had a later flight. I had not the red eye immediately after the last night of the show. I had it the day after. So I kind of had that last afternoon free. So I kind of went outside the confines of that financial center that we're staying in. And then I went to, I don't know what neighborhood, but I saw on the wall the cartoonist, the guy that the Reservoir Watch limited edition is based off of. And I'm like, oh, I recognize that. That's the guy that is responsible for that Reservoir piece. And I just thought that was so cool because it was just such a random find, not anything to do with watches, very many neighborhoods removed. And to see that piece was like, oh, that's kind of cool to see this cartoon mural made by this guy that was commissioned to do this piece, and that the story is authentic. Not that, they would have made it up anyway, but to actually see it as part of the fabric of random Dubai wanderings, I thought that was pretty cool. So I like that authentic connection.
And it didn't say "look cartoon" above it, no.
Yeah, it was just, I don't even remember what it said. It was just this big, kind of like mural panel, and I can't remember the neighborhood I saw it, but yeah, it was so random. It just caught my eye, and then I was like, "Hey, I know that aesthetic. That's totally the cartoonist that did that watch."
So, is the Doxa the watch that you're still thinking about, or was there any other releases or particular watches that have seared themselves into your mind?
The Doxa was really nice, by the way.
Yeah,
was
the
a really cool Doxa.
Doxa was really nice. I mean, I think we talked after we had one day's worth of meetings and strolling around the show. I got to see the Chopard LUC Strike 1, I think the last day of the show, and that is a very excellent watch. It's not Seddiqi limited, obviously, but it is limited in itself. It's 25 pieces, I believe. 18 karat white gold case. It's got a hourly chiming mechanism. It's just a beautiful dial, guilloche hexagonal pattern, and it's just one of those pieces you see and you can't help but love it. So that one definitely stands out, and that was one that we hadn't seen early on in the show.
Ariel, standout watch for you, the Doxa, and plus what else?
From the Seddiqi limited editions, I think that one of the interesting ones was the Ressence. I forgot the precise name of it, but it was not the first one they'd done. But it was sort of a level of artistry that I've never seen from a Ressence, which was supposed to be sort of this very technical style brand. And all of a sudden, you see art. It's not arguably the first art watch they've done, but for me, it was the one that really stood out as them officially sort of having an artistic side that was playful. And it was just, I don't think that Ressence would have done it without the inspiration from Seddiqi. So I really felt like it was good collaboration because it wasn't like Seddiqi being like, make me something special. It was like them giving a lot of input. And again, I don't know the full story behind it, but I think what's also interesting is that now Seddiqi has their own brand. So it's not officially all of Seddiqi. I think it's, it's penned as Muhammad Seddiqi's brand, but it's called Vintage with a Y, a little bit strange. But they just decided to have their own brand. No, I didn't really hear the whole plan behind it. But despite all the many amazing brands they have, now they're like, okay, let's get in on the game. And it seems kind of sort of like a little side fun project, but that was sort of a left field thing that nobody expected.
Stories from the show? Any good gossip?
I generally sort of stay away from that. I mean, I would like to hear business stuff. I think we're definitely seeing that a buyer's market is returning. So we had several years of things being really good. I remember the last Dubai Watch Week. They were just like, yeah, it's just, the orders keep coming in and are like, we have, 4 or 5 years of production, and they just all these brands, even the small ones, thought they were on top of the world. And some of them were pragmatic, like Armin Strom, for example, who's weathered a lot of storms. They're like, yes, demand is very high right now. Of course, it's not going to last. But a lot of companies really banked on it. And so now demand is going back down. There's a lot of new brands. And so the question is, in a very sobering economic environment, how many of these new brands can make it? And how many, can endure the 5, 6, 7, 8 years of sort of struggle that is often necessary for new brands prior to them getting any type of stride.
Yeah. Ed, any good stories from the stands?
Not particularly, but after we had recorded that first day, I think we were in the middle of the rain delay, and it was just like there were just funny occurrences throughout the rest of the week. So we went back to the show later that afternoon, and they were tearing down, or a lot of the meetings that we had in the surrounding booths actually had to be canceled. So it was just funny walking up to a booth like Ulyss Narden and the meeting being canceled because the booth was waterlogged. So the irony of that was is pretty funny to behold, and yeah, it was just little quirks like that we saw, and I think earlier we were doing just kind of an informal poll of the kind of wrist spotting that we had seen on day one, and I think I'd mentioned I hadn't seen so many Richard Mules in the wild since I don't know since how long, and the rest of the week, Richard Mule maintained the lead and maybe even expanded the lead. I have no idea why. I just saw so many Richard Mules. I found that very, very amusing. But yeah.
Great. And were either of the pair of you allowed on the Grand Seiko stand after last week's show?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind
were
of
you there by yourselves?
Bit of a ghost town there. Like, there were some people there, but that's not the region that they put a lot of effort in. That Like, everyone takes a long time in a crowded market to make low noise. The Middle East is a very mature, well-developed region, and I'm not sure there's a particular place for Grand Seiko because they want things a lot more grand and maybe a lot less Seiko a lot of the time. And I don't know that's the perfect market for it. So, like, yes, it makes sense for Grand Seiko to show up, and I'm sure there's buyers there, but I just think that there's a lot of other watches people would rather buy before that right now. I'm not sure what sort of market purpose it serves. For the Emiratis, it's definitely not flashy enough. For the regular folks, it's probably too expensive.
Well, we were joking about it last week about like dials inspired by the color of the payment after it rains in Dubai. But like there's a legitimate natural pattern for the dial that could be inspired by the desert. Like it's not really heavy lifting as far as coming up with inspiration. Like I don't see why they couldn't come up with a Seddiqi or Middle Eastern market focused dial that's inspired
because
by
Grand
XYZ.
Seiko doesn't have the market cornered on dials that look like things. In fact, they don't do a very good job of it. They just have some abstract color and texture, and then they say some random thing. You're like, oh, ice, okay. Like other brands actually do that better. Hublot did desert sand in one of their watches that had desert sand and concrete. It was one of
the concrete watch was really
gorgeous.
But even more to the point, like that makes it easier for them to be able to do it. They do so many. There's no reason why they couldn't do one that's a sand inspired, like a very specific desert inspired watch, or like.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're there trying, eventually, right?
Well, it would seem good place to end Ed's virgin streak of never having taken part in Guess the Price of a Seiko. So we
Okay.
have 2 Seikos that have been released or spoken about in the website this week. So we will include Ed in our game and see how he gets on. So first up, the Seiko Prospect Speed Timer. Hold on, I'm going to need to start again and take a breath. Here we go. Seiko Prospect Speed Timer Mechanical Chronograph SRQ047 and Limited Edition SRQ049 watches. There we go. Short and snappy and to the point as ever with Seiko. So what, gentlemen, would you like to know about this watch? It is 42 millimeters wide. It is your favourite 14.6 millimeters thick.
Not
It
so
is
bad.
based on a classic 1970s look. The movement, it's a panda dial layout. The movement,
What's the
is-
movement?
the movement is an 8R48 automatic chronograph.
Okay, I'm gonna
45
go with
hours power reserve.
$2,500.
28.
$2,500.
$2,500. Right, okay. David,
2100.
2,100. Ed,
I'm gonna go Price is Right, and I'm gonna go $20.99.
2019. Okay, well, okay, that's confusing me. Ed, you were not brought into this game to make it more difficult. Right, okay, so the winner actually spot on for the non-limited edition is Ariel at 2,500.
I should have gone
The
20,
limited edition-
2501.
At 2,501, you got to play the game. You're too far under, so you're out for the next
Really?
round, Ed.
This is, I think, the first
Uh,
time I've ever won this game.
Yeah. And
Yes.
the limited
And
edition
you'll
is
never win again,
27 Yeah, don't get overconfident, as I'd say. 2,700 USD for the limited edition. It's quite an attractive watch, but there's a gazillion other things that look like this. I'm sorry. Gentlemen, any thoughts on the watch itself?
It's nice looking.
Yeah, looks great.
Would you spend 2,500 notes on this?
I mean, you could do a lot worse for a mechanical chronograph. It'll last you real long. I mean, it doesn't have it's like a nerd watch. Like, it's a cool nerd watch. What I'm saying is, like, at that price point, like, a lot of people want to like impress people a little bit, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh man, Seiko!" They're gonna be like, "Oh, cool, Seiko."
Yeah,
This is-
I think that's it. You spent how much on a Seiko? But I'm saying if it's over $1,000, it should be a grand Seiko. It's
Like,
as simple as that.
The most
it's
exciting
a simple
Seiko
strategy.
chronograph is a quartz to me that they don't make
Yes.
anymore.
Right, and the second Seiko covered on the website, which will take another breath because there's even more letters and numbers, is the Seiko Prospect Marine Master 1965 Divers Modern Reinterpretation SGE 101, SGE 099, and SGE 097 watches. Basically the same watch in 3 different colours. A kind of bluey one, a kind of blacky one, and a kind of whitey one with a silver bezel. Gentlemen, this is something to do with the 100th anniversary of Seiko, but they've been going on about that since.
But
they
what-
were
what
in their
movements
early
are
90s.
these?
This is a copy, but not an exact, stress not an exact carbon copy of a 62 mass. It is 39.5 millimeters, 12.3 thick, and the movement in it is as he scrolls down the article to find out, it is an 6L37 4 hertz 46 hours. Plus or minus, minus 10 to plus 15 seconds a day. Seiko's legendary accuracy. What do we think? First of all, do we think it's more or less expensive than the previous one that we've just spoken about, than the chronograph?
I have literally no idea.
I'm gonna go
It
more.
would make no sense for it to be any more expensive, so it probably is.
Okay, so let's have a guess. So David Moore,
No,
I- I've-
I'm not giving it to them. I think it should be 1800.
1800. Ariel, 1800, higher or lower?
I think it's higher. I mean, we've been talking about some of these dive watches. It's just like insane. Like they're all
Just
like
say
$3,000.
1801. And then Ed will say
Take Ed's
1802.
Ed will say
I'm
1799.
gonna say $3,000.
$3,000 from Ariel. Ed,
What?
I'm gonna go higher. I'm gonna say 3,000. I mean, I actually think it's probably like 3,500.
right, so
So
35
You guys are
3
crazy.
grand. Okay, so if I tell you it's 2,800 USD, so
Oh,
it's in fact
jeez.
more expensive than the last one. So Ariel, again, you're actually the
This
closest
is-
to this.
This is why we play this game, to highlight how incredibly random this is.
did Ariel say 3,000?
Yeah.
I
Ariel
was
said
gonna,
2,000.
I was gonna say
So,
3,001. Would
yeah,
have lost
sorry, Ed,
anyway.
you lost both rounds.
Worthless.
It's going to be such a shame when
That's
the
a
day
lot of
eventually
money.
comes. It is. It's a very nice watch. I actually prefer it to the previous chronograph, but the fact that it's a nicer looking watch doesn't mean it should necessarily be more expensive. That's not how it works. It's too small. A dive watch shouldn't be 39.5 millimeters. I'm sorry. That's just.
Unreal.
Anyway, there we go. That's just my
With
opinion.
miniaturization, you pay more. You realize that, right?
Ah, right. Is that what it is? It's the whole 2.5 millimeters less.
That's
that you've got
what
on
they're
the
good
watch.
at. It's all
Any
about making
sense.
things smaller, right?
What are you
gonna be
talking about?
It's going to be such a shame when one day Seiko sort out their pricing structure and we have to abandon this game.
There's gonna
I think that's what we'll
there's gonna
do.
be a manifesto, the Seiko manifesto, justifying their value because
Ew.
they literally want to tell us why it should be worth this. We obviously don't know. We're not smart enough to understand.
Okay,
They need to tell us.
I tell you what we'll do, Seiko. When the day comes that 3 watch reviews, 3 guess the price of a Seiko reviews happen in a row, and Ariel manages to get the price correct on each of those 3 episodes, then we'll stop playing this game for a bit at least. But I don't think there's much chance to happen.
I see. I'm not saying the price I want it to be. Since we've been doing this so much, I sort of been getting a taste for their little craziness. But like, this isn't like what I actually be like. If I was gonna price this for people, like that chronograph should be like $1,800, and that dive watch should be like, I don't know, $1,100, $1,200 maybe. Even that over. Like, I remember when the Seiko dive watch was like $350, and you were like, wow, that's a lot of watch for the money. Now, like, that doesn't exist anymore, even though the watch still exists.
If it's over $1,000, it's a grand Seiko. That's just a simple rule. It would work so easily. It's so straightforward. Okay, you might need to allow for it where some currencies, start in the tens of millions in terms of the number of zeros. Like Zimbabwe probably wouldn't work. But most other countries
Okay,
in the
you're
world,
overthinking at this point, but I appreciate that.
Okay, well, let's do some overthinking on one of your articles, Ariel, making sense of wristwatch customization. On your marks, get set, go. Make sense of wristwatch customization for me.
The funniest thing about wristwatch customization is that ever since I started doing what I do, even before, these companies would like make these elaborate online tools, like, oh, the average person is going to go and they're going to crazy customize their watch and they're going to love it so much and we're going to make it for them, but we're going to make their dream come true. And it's failed every single time. And, the funny thing is there's like, I don't know, maybe 5%, maybe less of watch buyers out there who ever actually have this desire to do it. Most people want someone else to do it for them. I basically go through all the different types of ways that watches can be customized, from online customizers to aftermarket modifications, and the difference between personalization, what a bespoke watch is. I just sort of try to explain it because sometimes these terms are used very interchangeably and they all mean very different things. And on a crazy side, you can spend millions of dollars and have like Vacheron make you a brand new movement that they'll advertise the hell out of, but only sell to you. And on the other side, there's places where you can get, a bunch of different colors and things like that, and maybe choose from a few options. And I think it's interesting because customization for me is not, here's our 3, bezels, choose one. That's a different thing. That's sort of a selector. So I think sometimes people call that customization. It's not. So I try to talk about through these various things to help make sense of it.
Ed, ever owned a customized watch or customized one yourself?
No, I haven't. I don't have the strongest opinions of it either way. I mean, I understand why some people want to do it. And I'm kind of the opinion, just wear what you want. So, yeah, I've never done it personally, but it's not a big deal to
What are you
me.
talking about? You totally personalized a watch.
What did I personalize?
Oh,
You changed
controversial.
straps, and then you basically, you stone tumbled that watch to wear it
Oh,
G-Shock.
That's
Come on.
would that I okay, does that count as customization? I mean, so
Yeah.
the quick story is basically I just took a basic, it was like the 35th anniversary G-Shock Full Metal, and it's like matte black or slightly gloss black. And that same year that they had come out with the stonewashed IP version, which had like $1,000 premium. Same watch, same module inside. And I basically took my Full Metal, very carefully covered up the crystal in front and then the case back, and then I basically hand tumbled it. So ceramic media, put it in a protein a protein shaker actually, filled with ceramic
That's
media,
cool.
dropped the watch in, and then just shook it for I don't know how long, probably like all told, if you were running a stopwatch for the entire time I shook it, maybe like mm, 20 minutes worth. I don't know. Like I would do a handful of sessions. I'd shake it for a couple minutes, take it out, rinse it off, see if I liked the amount of abrasion and such. And then, I did it to taste, and then it ended up looking exactly like that washed IP version. But it is technically the Full Metal anniversary black one that you could get for, I think it was $1,000 cheaper. So does that count as customization? I don't know. I mean, I guess I did specifically want to replicate the IP version of the watch, and effectively did the same thing that Casio does, except obviously they do it in a different process. But yeah, they're just tumbling. My understanding is that they do the same thing. They're just tumbling the component pieces to get that washed IP look. So
You get to advertise that yours was hand done
yes,
rather than machine, so
I-
it's even more valuable.
that's very true. But I mean, it is from the
Lead into
outside,
it.
you really cannot tell. It looks like the IP
Right.
version. But yes, I
Cool.
guess technically speaking, sure, we'll give it to Ariel. I customized the watch.
David, you recently did a self-build watch. Have you ever customized a watch that you own?
Only with scratches. That's just through hardware. That's the only way I customize
Through
watches.
this
Really.
blood, sweat, and tears of being a watch journalist.
Yes, and I've been intrigued by
Intrinsic
some of these.
danger.
Yeah, my middle name is Danger. I've seen, at least for my watches, it
Underscore
is.
danger. Le
Yes.
underscore danger.
Little danger.
Yeah, I like a bit of patina, but I've been intrigued by the Seiko mods that create like cool looking chronographs and stuff where you can like seriously upgrade the quality of individual components. I think that there's big, like, very fascinating potential in that system and the way that could work. And I think that's still a very small segment of the world of watches. But again, I think there's a lot of things that could be done there. But just playing around with that idea for now. I haven't dived into it
Yeah.
just
Ariel,
yet.
do you think it's a market that's growing or subsiding? Obviously, in recent history, Rolex, as well as a couple other brands, have had a bit of a pushback on just the process and advertising that if you customize your watch, you ain't getting it serviced. So do you think it's actually a decreasing thing, or is it, just toodle along as a thing for ever and a day?
Well, the first thing I'll do is look at the fact that a lot of companies have basically started making production versions of the mods. Um, Casio comes to mind, for example, where a lot of their watches basically began life as like things that they can do and modify. And they're like, oh yeah, we should do that. From the translucent ones to now the ones that are made out of various carbon materials. There was, people were modifying their G-Shock case, removing the resin and putting a carbon one. I wrote about one years ago. So I think that if it wasn't for that market to get inspiration, Casio and others wouldn't be making those. So I'd say it's pretty big. Um, it's very regional. I would say that in certain places in Asia, Malaysia, for example, possibly Japan, it's a lot more popular. There's just more of an appetite for it. A lot of it is done there. Um, in Seikos and others, especially Seiko when it's cheaper now. I'm not so sure. But with the new Seiko 5s, I guess they're doing a lot of things there. I'm sure that, Seiko could make watches that were more difficult to mod if they wanted to, but they don't. I think they respect the practice, and I think that they like it. I think other brands like Rolex obviously are viciously against it, but I think there's something to be said about having a more open source so to say, watch that is mod friendly. I know in the computer world that's been very good, and a lot of other types of areas. Having watches that serve as popular platforms that can be modified could be good for business. Um, and I'd say that really only the Japanese brands have ever, sort of stumbled on that. I'm not sure if any of them do it intentionally. But the Swiss, if they want artists and others to take their watches and do things, they've been selling their movements for years. And then what do people do? They just put a case around it, sort of like a mod. So they're familiar with this practice. So I think it'll be interesting to see a little bit of that. You have a lot of white labelers out there. So I'd say regionally, it's kind of popular it's here and there. But for the mainstream, I'd say not really.
Well, one of the things that obviously does count as modification in some way, shape, or form is when you change the strap on a watch. And David, you have had the experience of dealing with Jean Rousseau and actually getting a bespoke strap tailor-made for your Zodiac. Quite like this watch strap. What's the story? How did this come about? And how did you choose this watch to use this strap on?
Yeah, I thought that this is an interesting project. This is about Jean Rousseau, the French strap maker's bespoke strap service. So it's basically a service where you can decide on any number of different aspects of a strap, and they set up this query basically that's like 8, 9, 10 questions long, and it's only then that you realize how many different aspects there are to a watch strap that make it what it is. And you realize that you probably have a very specific taste in straps. Like, how much padding do you like? What should the end be like? Should it be like pointy or rounded or cut off or whatever? And so they allow you to fully customize a strap, and that's what we did here. It's for the Zodiac Super Seal Wolf, which is a dark gray, like gunmetallic gray, coated case with some orange accents and some white hour markers and luminous material in the hands. And I figured it could be fun to swap this watch around because it came on this dark gray bracelet, which of course is very cool, but that's one look. And how do you go for another look? It's basically by creating a contrasting option. And so the strap ended up being this white fabric strap that is waterproof, and it has this gun metallic gray stitching to go with a contrast, and also to just to connect the two things, like the strap and the case visually. And the lining on the inside is this super smooth rubber that is orange and makes the orange elements on the watch head really pop. And so it was a cool experience. It comes in a very nice case. It's beautifully presented. You understand that it's made specifically for you. And I thought to myself that this is a really cool experience. And it's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, because one of these projects start at $240 in calfskin and $300 in rubber. So you do have to like reach into your pockets a little bit more if you want to spend on this. But once you do, I think that it's easy to get hooked on getting straps that are exactly right for your watch. It's just next level in every way.
Ed, Ariel, do you have big buckets of straps sitting in a corner of your office somewhere?
You could always use more straps. I mean, David's experience is probably fun and amazing, but as he said, it's expensive, but also, time consuming if you have a lot of watches. So I think that for people who have the patience and the budget to do that, it can be very, very rewarding. But I don't really know the best place of just sort of getting straps to have a lot of extras. People tend to probably buy them for a specific watch, and then they have sort of a graveyard of straps, and they try to repurpose them. I think that's sort of the way it is for me, that I'm just sort of lucky that I've accumulated straps. But I always feel like there's more. I always wish I had more colors, more styles, more options, because it can be such a joy to properly fit like the right strap with a watch, especially when the stock strap is just so awful, which is really too often the case, I think. Citizen.
Ed, do you have... Ed, do you have a big bucket of straps sitting somewhere?
I keep my strap collection pretty minimal. I also have a graveyard of straps, but I'm like forever on the search for the specific kind of strap. I mean, I find that I usually only ever wear my watches on the bracelet if it comes on a bracelet, or I tend towards rubber, because I'm one of those guys that always has a watch on. I shower with my watches. I know don't at me. But I
No, I'm with you in that.
I shower with my watch. I sleep with my watch. I take it off to clean it, clean the skin underneath, obviously. But then at all times, I have a watch on. So the water resistance is very important. So I tend to end up gravitating towards rubber straps or waterproof sailcloth straps. But yeah, that's just kind of a particular thing that I like. I don't really love NATO straps. I have been on the hunt for the perfect NATO, and I don't think my wrist is meant for it. Like for some reason, it's just I can never get a good fit. I never like the extra fabric, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm looking at the photos of the watch that David photographed with the JR straps, and it's really nice. It really does. It is that difference, like with a tailored suit. Like you look at the underside and how it fits at the lugs. It's like perfect. I'm actually like really quite surprised by it. But yeah, this is something that kind of itches that part of my watch collecting in terms of straps where I feel like I can never find a perfect strap. Well, maybe you should just have one made for you perfectly, and then you won't have that problem. So
Well, do be sure and join us next week where we have a perfectly legitimate rant about watch bracelets and how you extend and retract them. Because I know that David and Ariel have been particularly animated on the WhatsApp group this week about
Yes.
their love of all things bracelet. So that's next week's sequel. Let's head in for some rounding up of the show. We're going to do some hit miss maybe, and seeing as there's 4 of us, it might take a smidgen longer. So first up this week is on hit miss maybe is the Morris Grossman 15th. Well, how can you have a 15th anniversary? Morris Grossman 15th anniversary back page green watches, plus a one-off anniversary tremblage article by Mike on the website. Putting aside the ridiculousness of 15th as an anniversary, what do we think of this watch? Hit miss maybe, Ed?
it's I don't love the purple hands, but it's a very pretty watch. I actually really do like the tremblage. I did get to stop by their booth at Dubai Watch Week and check out both the back page and the tremblage. The anniversary dial, I don't love the years on it. I love everything else about that watch, actually. I just don't love how prominently displayed the years are. So yeah, if it didn't have the years and it was just the regular tremblage, I'd be definite hit. Back page, yeah, sure, give it a hit.
Give it a hit. David, hit miss maybe?
Oh, having seen these watches hands-on and the quality that they exude, it's always going to be a hit for me. Even if the design does not particularly speak to me, it's still these are amazing watches. So hit for sure.
Okay, Ariel?
Moritz Grossman knows how to make a really nice watch, and the components tend to be very good. This is not one of their prettier watches, and it has all kinds of problems from the name to elements of the design and the colors. The whole story about it feels very forced. It definitely looks like it was sort of made by committee. I understand that they need to keep making, more watches, but I think that they're a perfect example of a company that should just sort of like be stoic, and we have like, these are our models, and each year we have a couple of special ones, but these are our models. We think they're great, and they just sort of build upon them slowly. They could look very disciplined. Rather, we've seen them be frenetic with a bunch of random weird designs all over the place. And if that sells, okay, but it's just not the direction I personally want to see this brand going. And so overall, I like the brand a lot, but this watch is a miss for me.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Morris Grossman, but I'm sorry, this watch is horrible. It really does look like it's maybe it's. I'm not saying the photography is bad, but maybe it just doesn't photograph well. This looks like something to me that would come like on some sort of knockoff site. To be perfectly honest, I really, really dislike this. Yeah, it's just. I'm sorry. I love Morris Grossman. They make some of my favorite watches.
Some of my favorite friends are named Grossman.
Some of my favorite friends are Grossmans. I mean the what's the not the bump movement. What's that called? Oh, I've lost my place here. The pendulum movement. You know
like
what
a
I mean?
like a detent.
What's the? I'm actually on their website now because it's completely gone out of my head. I'll edit it in when I remember.
I don't remember what they've been.
And the power of being the editor means I can now insert that the Morris Grossman watch I was referring to is called the Hematic. Back to the show.
They make a nice power reserve.
They do make a nice power reserve, but this is such a miss. If there was an option beyond a miss, this would deserve it. So sorry,
Mega
Morris
miss.
Mega miss. I do love your watches, but
A gross miss.
this is
gross
gross.
miss.
There's no man about this. This is just gross. Right. New release Bell and Ross BRX5 green loom watch. Like we always say, what's not to love about Bell and Ross? It's such a hit.
More loom.
More loom. David, is that just a summary? It's a hit for you. More loom.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Ariel.
Very yes.
So I didn't get to shoot it, but I saw this watch in person. And look, I admit, we've all talked about glowing watches. We all love loom. David loves it a lot more than everyone else. But the thing is,
just put diamonds on it and it's a complete watch for David.
Oh my god. Yes.
this watch, when it's not glowing, is like that sickly green color, right? And it's bloody expensive. So I think it's interesting, but there's like other, it is. It's like, it looks like dried up ectoplasm from when you were playing with Ghostbusters stuff as a kid. Like it's not a really pretty color. And I just people need to know this. So it's you have to keep like a torch in your pocket. It has to be always glowing. You're like, oh, it's looking funny again. Look, I love that they did it. We love Bell and Ross for this stuff, but when people are like, oh, this is the next best thing. No, this is an art watch. Just leave it at that.
Ed.
Oh, easy hit. I mean, yeah. Glow in the dark. That's all. I'm sold.
I'd rather be another color, like the blue or the red. Like you can make the luminant in other materials. They're not quite as bright as green. Green really is kind of the brightest one. But like I think in that blue or red loom material, it could be a little better. That sort of electric neon, like mega urine look. I just can't look at it all the time.
Did you just say mega urine?
Yeah. I've been trying to use mega a lot in this call.
Yeah, did you get that from the press release? Was that a descriptor of the color? Mega
No,
urine?
I'm just saying, in little bits like on a watch dial, the green looks limited, but like when you see it in a whole watch case, it's massive amount of this color, and most people just aren't used to seeing that much. That's what I'm saying. When you see it in person, you're like I'm like, wow, that's a lot of like neon green.
Yeah, that's what's cool about
Well,
it.
I think I think that's a section we'll be clipping for the intro. Arione's mega urine watch.
All right.
Okay, so Brellam Pilot GMT LE3 chronometer watch. I have to say, I think this is one of the best, like, most complete chronograph releases. Nice brand, nice movement, nice price. Just, yeah, love it. Big hit. But other opinions are available. Ariel?
It's okay. I have a few Brellums. I remember when they first started. They haven't changed too much. This watch is a bit on the thicker side in person, and you might love the hands, you might not. But overall, they do a good sort of vintage sports watch style, but it is again a larger timepiece. So I think that it looks great in images, but people need to try this on to see if the size and proportions work for them.
I mean, I've never seen one in person or handled one in person, but on paper, it's a huge hit. I'm a big, anything that's got pilot aesthetics, I'm basically sold, but it's really nicely done. It's really legible. I mean, my only gripes about it are that the subdials feel a little busy. I feel like that could have been improved a little bit, but otherwise, I love that watch.
And David?
It's a week maybe for me with the 7 and 750 architecture, and this with all the lines, and it's just like these horizontal lines in the subdials and a lot of like just graduations everywhere. It's got a lot going on, and they made it work. But I'm just not sure this is the one that I would get.
A bit busy. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Well, that is the formal section of the watch reviews over for this week. But let's find out what David Danger Breden is up to for the rest of the week. David?
I'm reviewing a Siga design watch of all things. I just received it in the mail. Thankfully, it was not returned because sometimes the post office here just, oh, this was not delivered. Bam, back it goes to freaking like Shenzhen. After like you have like one afternoon to take delivery, but no, this time it spent some time there and I could still pick it up. It's the Eye of Horus watch collection, which is actually kind of cool. I was very positively surprised by it. It's light. It's
Did you mean Le Eye of Horus?
Le Eye. Yes, thank you. And it's a cool one. So I'm looking forward to reviewing that.
Great stuff. Ed, once you tear yourself away from taking pictures in Japan with French words on them, what else are you up to next?
I've got a ton of photos to edit from Dubai Watch Week, so that's going to take up a good chunk of my time. And then it's funny, while I'm here, I've been picking Ariel's brains, and also would love if you guys can send me recommendations after we're done recording, if you have any. I want to do some watch shopping in Tokyo because I've never done that, and I really want to, and I want to see what deals are out there. So, yeah.
Spending other people's money, a favourite habit. So we'll send something to you. Just while you're talking about photography, most difficult watch to photograph at the show and most difficult booth to photograph in, because there's always one.
Oh,
There's always one booth or watch that everyone goes, that's just a nightmare. What was it this year?
all the Grubel 4Cs are impossible. Well, not impossible. They're very difficult to photograph, as the names imply with the convex shot. One of those. It's just so many angles. And then to answer your second question, which kind of flows into that first part, is that, man, Dubai Watch Week is not. It's a really challenging place to take photos because there are these inexplicable purple streamers above you in every booth. So there's nothing to bounce light off of. If you try and bounce light up there, you're getting this purple glow on all your watches, and you're like, oh, this watch looks really purple for some reason, and you look up and it's like, well, that's because there's streamers there. So all boosts is the answer. All boosts were difficult to photograph in. But yeah, as far as the watches go, particularly the Grubel 4Cs are pretty difficult. But they're a ton of fun to play with, so it's a plus and minus.
Great stuff. Ariel, you're flitting to New York shortly. Anything watch related that you can share with us?
Yeah, so the Citizen Group is opening up a pretty big store. I think it's on Fifth Avenue, and it's interesting. It's going to be a mega store. I got to use mega again. Of multiple brands.
Thankfully, you didn't use the word urine again, so that's fine.
I don't like to use that word. So it's going to be Citizen and Bulova and Alpina and Frederic Constant and maybe even Arnold and Son and Angelus possibly, because they own Le Jeu Perret. So there's other other things there that are going to be interesting to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing that store, and I'm wearing a watch that I will be reviewing that I've been waiting over a decade to wear, and it's the Gelfman Nixie Tube watch. It has some letters and numbers associated with it, but this is a watch that has 2 Nixie tubes in it and connects to your computer, so you can make some adjustments to it. I just started wearing it, but I think what's interesting, it's surprisingly well refined. Like all the features you think it should have, you're like, oh, can you make it so it turns on when you lift your wrist? And like, yeah, they put the accelerometer in there. So all these years of refinement has allowed to have that one of the most satisfying nerd watch experiences maybe ever.
Excellent. Well, to a week of satisfying nerd watch experiences, we hope that you, good listeners, get your nerd watch experiences collectively this week, and that you will join us again next week. So thank you very much for listening. Please leave a review on your podcaster of choice. Goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from the three of them. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Bye bye.
See you guys.